remember the Bart Gregory, Gary Darby calling women's basketball days for Mississippi State and Ole Miss, because I would run the boards because WFCA was the flagship station. So I had to deal with Bart. And I remember one time you guys were having some issues over in Arkansas, I believe it was. I can't remember. It's an SEC tournament. And Gary had warned me earlier that the phone lines weren't very good. I can't repeat the rest of the story. We're at French Camp, WFCA. But it's bringing back memories having you in here with Bart at the same time. So it was a word Bart said. It was great. I had to embarrass you a little bit. Okay, so what we're going to do with this is we're going to have these guys. I'm going to kind of moderate this, and I'm going to bring up a couple of topics. But instead of me just sitting here questioning these guys, we're going to open it up to you. So anybody out there that has questions, we're going to have one of our cheerleaders, or Kyla, our cheerleader sponsor, who I referred to her earlier as her maiden name. She's Kyla McKnight, so I apologize. She had been Kyla Perry in a few years, so anyway. But Kyla Perry just kind of rolls off the tongue. All right, so be thinking of some questions, but I'm going to get it started first. And, of course, the microphone's in front of Jim or Neil, so whoever wants to grab it first. One of the big things that people were wondering about with some of you guys is prep. And I know that sometimes y'all are going to have a whole lot more at your disposal than maybe some of the high school and even the JUCO guys. So from each one of you, a quick statement on what is advice on prep and how do you prep for your broadcast? Neil, you want to start us off?
Sure. I don't know if you want me to show them or not, but my backpack's under my seat under there. I've got some of those charts if you want me to show them. Yeah, you care to grab it?
I'll go grab it.
Yeah, if you don't care, and I'll give them a word on that while you're doing it. So Jason's absolutely right. In Southeastern Conference football or basketball, the real trick, I think, to preparation is deciding what you want to use and what is most relevant. And my experience is that those things won't be the same in consecutive games. They won't be the same in November and December as they will be in January, February, March, and, you know, if you're lucky, April. What I would say, thank you, Rob. What I would say is that you're paring down. For those of you in the room that are doing high school games, I used to try to prep for high school games like I do for college games. And what I'll tell you is it's not realistic for a number of reasons. The rosters aren't that big, if you get a roster at all. You don't have all the statistics to go by. And to think that any coach is going to give you a two deep, no matter how long you've known them in high school, is a little realistic, because they may not have a two deep because you got a bunch of guys playing on both sides. So what I would say to you is, if you're preparing for a high school game, the roster's everything. If you can get the roster, take whatever they give you, and I would put it in numerical order. If you had double numbers, I'd put those double numbers together, and I wouldn't worry about whatever kind of chart that you've seen, or, you know, and I've got some in here. I'll be glad to show you the breakouts later, or if we get time to come back to it, we'll do it here. But I wouldn't worry about putting that together. I'd just worry about, do I have the basic information in a format that I can access it quickly and understand it, and then relay it to the listener? That's what matters at the end of the day. And it doesn't have to be pretty. It just matters that it works for you. And everybody's different. So that's kind of, I guess, how I would go from doing an SEC game down to where most of us started at, doing a high school game. You've done this longer than I have. Am I close on that?
Well, it was back before there was writing, and I really from where I started to when I first started, I didn't know what I was doing, so it was pretty easy to mess up. And then I got to where I tried to do too much, and just like Neil says, you can put too much stuff down. What I found out is you got to filter out what you can actually use, and it takes some. I think you have to know your sport, and I did 3 different sports. Actually, at one time I did Mississippi State football, basketball, I was a color on football. I was doing play-by-play on women's basketball. I was doing color on basketball, and I was doing play-by-play on baseball. And so I had all these different sports to try to figure it out. I found out every sport's different. I can put down, I've got a lot more time to give information on baseball. I can have a lot more stuff to talk about because there's a lot more dead time in baseball. Football, the most important thing is to be able to, like Jack Crystal used to tell me, tell them where the football is, tell them who made the tackle, who ran the ball, and cut out all the whatever else he said. So, I mean, yeah, something like that. But and that's really true. And basketball, you don't have time to do much of anything but call the play. So all of the and Neil does a great job. I listen to Neil and I listen to David. They both do great jobs with that. But basketball, you want to have some things to fill in with, but you don't have a lot of fill time. I love doing basketball because you don't have to think a lot. You just have to be able to have a good cadence of how do you do the ball game and try to make all the play you can without saying too much. You can call. It's amazing in basketball. You can try to call too much, but you also can leave people if you don't call enough. And I think it's really up to the broadcaster how they want to do it. But I used to listen to a guy off of 3WE in Cleveland, Ohio, who did the Cavaliers. Joe Tate. Joe Tate was, I thought, one of the best basketball announcers I ever heard. He could do a great job of following the ball, but he also could do a great job of setting the scene at the same time. He was a great basketball announcer. And I encourage you, that's the thing I did. I listened to all the really good announcers in the old days. Not that there aren't a lot of good ones now, but I learned a lot from just listening to announcers who are really good at their what they do. And I think that's very helpful. So, but as far as preparation, it's important. The worst thing you can do is go and not be prepared. Preparation is important, but you have to figure out what you can use and do the relevant things. That's what I tried to do.
That's good advice. I've always kind of gone along the theory. You want to keep it simple. If you're just starting out, you want to make sure you tell them who's got it, where they got it, and how they got it. And then if you can do that, then you can start adding a little bit here and there. But I think all of us kind of sometimes get into the mode to where you try to say too much. You want maybe some time to let people know how much you know about it. And all you do then is maybe get it confused. But you just gotta keep it simple. And once you keep it simple, the rest of it kind of comes into play. The best friend you ever have, though, and I've got one that sits right there next to me today, Jack Duggan, our media relations director at Southern Miss. Your best friend needs to be that media relations guy. I know you don't always have that in high school, maybe not have that in junior college, but at the college level, the pro level, you've got the media relations guy who can make sure you got everything right. You got the numbers right. You got the pronunciations right, the names right, and all the information right. And so, again, I always say, keep it simple. Who's got it, where they got it, how they got it. As you get more comfortable with that, then you can add in some of that other stuff. So it's a lot of fun. It can be complicated sometimes, but the more simple that you make it, the easier it is, and the better it is for fans listening in.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what they've said, not repeat, but a couple of things too. On a high school level, because I did high school sports too, you don't have that sports information director sometimes, right? And so you've got to build relationships. And I think that's important even on our level too. Get to know the coaches, get to know the players, and then you have some human interest type notes that you can use as well. And on the high school level, yeah, you may go 3 or 4 years and can't get it too deep out of a high school coach. But you want them to trust you and understand, and they may tell you some strategical things that even they're doing on the high school level that against a particular opponent. And the other thing about prep, and all of us will say this, and I'll let Charles and Rob talk to you about it too, but an interesting thing about prep is that you'll go to a game with all this great stuff. You spend hours getting ready. I mean, we'll spend 30 hours in a week getting ready for a football game. And you got all this stuff, then all of a sudden something happens, player gets hurt, and then all of a sudden you can't use any of that, right? There's a tendency stat and doesn't work out. Okay, maybe a historical stat and doesn't work out. So you may walk away from a game having not used everything, but that's okay too. You were prepared and you had plenty of information to use, and you can be overkill. And I can accuse myself of being overkill. I'm real good in basketball now because I pretty much figure out exactly how much I need. We've done it for so many years, and like Jim said, basketball, you don't have a lot to add anyway. And you also got to add your color analyst and give them a chance to speak as well. And it's getting even more difficult in football. Harry and I have talked about football's become basketball. I mean, they asked Coach Kiffin about what would be the increased speed. Will you be able to play faster now that you can talk to your quarterback in the helmet? And in one of our Rebel road trips, Coach Kiffin said, yeah, 1.2 seconds faster. I'm like, where did he get that? But that limits the amount of time that you can include other people in the broadcast too. Rob?
Let me say, and kind of back what David was saying, there's so many stats, particularly at our level, there's so many pages and pages of stats that some you don't even know what they are sometimes. So one of the things you got to be careful of, at least I think, is not to make it too complicated, because that person sitting there listening or watching just wants to know, again, the simple parts of the game.
Thank you. I just want to first of all say it's an honor to be here with these guys. I listen to all of these guys, and I tell you, during the Super Bowl years ago, I'm a fan of the Chiefs. I never watched the Super Bowl because the Chiefs are never in it. And I would listen to Mr. Ellis doing Mississippi State women's basketball. I would listen to that instead of watching Super Bowl stuff. But anyway, I agree with all these guys saying prepare. What I would do, and I know this is kind of difficult, I would try to memorize the name and the number of the player. And as I got a little bit older, I would just memorize the quarterback. That was the main thing I did, memorize the quarterback's number and his name, so I would know, because quarterback gonna touch the ball all the time. And I give you a quick little story. And the SWAC is a little different. We were playing at Southern University. I had memorized the entire Southern roster. Game time comes, so I go ask the guy right before the game, how do I pronounce this guy's name? This is what he said. Oh man, that's last year's roster.
I have one word to Rob J's response, amen. I would say for me, over these years, thank goodness for social media. And I would say that because the SWAC, unlike the SEC, where you have beat writers on top of beat writers that cover these teams day in and day out, we don't have that. So there are a handful of folks that cover some of these SWAC teams, and they're on social media. They want the clicks, they want the likes. So as far as preparing for the other team, that's who I go to, because some of our schools, unfortunately, don't have the beat writers where you can pull up stories and information. So you have to go with some of that. And of course, personal relationships matter, because if you know the broadcasters, if you know the people at Prairie View and at Texas Southern and at Jackson State, that helps you with information as well. So I would agree that as far as preparation, getting to know your own coach, getting to know your own folks, getting to know your own players, getting to know your own administration, that helps. I'm at practice most days. I know we have a whole new staff. We have a new coach who was our former defensive coordinator. He's now the head coach. He's got a whole new staff. So you got to start all over again. And I think that's the important thing for me as far as preparation. As far as my stats and depth charts, I try to keep it simple. The KISS mode, keep it simple, stupid. I keep it simple. And if you do that and just give the folks what they want names, they want to hear their nephews and their nieces' names getting called, make sure pronunciations are right. I think you can keep it simple, and I think the broadcast can flow. And as David said, with this RPO, this plays going just like that. You don't have a whole lot of time for your color guy, but you try to get it in where you fit it in. So it's definitely changed. It's definitely different. And for me, I just try to simplify the preparation and just try to give the folks what they want. People want scores. People want to know what's going on with the other SWAC teams. And of course, being at Alcorn, I'm kind of the youngster here, 33 years at Alcorn as compared to 47 and change for some of these other folks. Just being able to give the fans the Alcorn history. We were at our SWAC Media Day the other day, and just talking with a former punter that hadn't seen in 24 years. He just walked in the door, and we shared stories. So I think if you share those stories with your team in the past and past stuff, that helps the flow of the broadcast, because people want to know what Alcorn was like in the past, and just sharing those type of stories. So all of that helps in terms of the flow of the broadcast. It makes it more entertaining. It makes it more informative. And, of course, it always helps when you're winning. It's brutal when you're losing.
Absolutely. Okay, I wanted to ask them about longevity. Let me put that on hold for a moment because of time. I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have that as a question, feel free to ask it, because all these guys have been doing this for a while. Even though Neil is still relatively young to Mississippi State, Neil's been in broadcasting since a teenager. So longevity is something too I'd like for them to address at some point. But we're going to get Camry to come around with the mic. If you have a question, make it specific, please, to a broadcaster, because your question, we can't go to each broadcaster. It'll take a while, so make it broadcaster specific. Any questions? All right.
Well, we covered it all.
We got Caleb here.
All right. Caleb Hamill, thank you all for being on this panel and taking our questions. I want to start off with this question because we're high school announcers. This will cut on in a minute. There it is. Oftentimes we have not so great vantage points. Sometimes in the different venues you go to, especially Auburn now. Thank you, Auburn, for putting broadcasters in the corner. How do you handle broadcasts with not so advantageous vantage points?
Specifically to someone who wants to answer.
Let's take DK and Rob and Charles.
Okay.
That is a really good question with us. Because I think I was telling somebody this the other day, with the SWAC, there's an anger when you come to their arena. They hate your team so much and your school so much, they don't try to accommodate you. I'll tell you, last year we were playing Southern University. It's always Southern. So Southern and Jackson State, they hate each other. So instead of being in the booth we were supposed to be in, our broadcast booth, they had sold it out. They gave it to the president's wife, woman, and girlfriend. So we had to sit out. We had to sit out in press row. We sat out in press row, and the guy comes over to us and he says, "This is press row. Keep your voice down." So I'm mad now because we out with all of the news media. I amped it up, and I was hoping Jackson State would score or do something. So every time they scored, I would say, "Oh, Jackson State touchdown!" I would do it real loud. So the guy comes over, he said, "I told you to keep it down." I said, "Man, I'm gonna do the game like I've been doing it." Okay, there was another touchdown. I did it again. He comes over there, he says, "You don't follow the rules like Alcorn. They follow the rules." But and then I was telling somebody else, we were in Mobile, Alabama. We didn't have a room. They put us in the stairwell. Can you imagine doing a game in a stairwell? So it's difficult. You just got to make the best that you can with that's what I've been dealing with.
Who did they give that booth to again?
And that's another hallelujah from this side of it, because we played Southern University last year, just like Jackson State, and what happened was the visitors radio booth was taken over by the head coach's wife. That was a part of his contract, that his wife would get a primetime booth, and that was the visitors radio booth. And we sat along press row. Unlike Rob J, I told my color guy, "Hey, we're gonna call the game the way we're gonna call it. That's our responsibility. I don't give a damn. I don't give a I'm gonna call it touchdown Alcorn. I don't care who's listening. I don't care." But as far as high school is concerned, that's a good question, because most of the time for us doing Vicksburg High, you're kind of in competition because booth space is limited. You got these streams now, people are streaming, and that takes up press box space, something we didn't have 10, 15 years ago, which we had a spot. And so for us, we just, if the weather's good, if the roof is available, just climb up on the roof. And that's, it's a great site. There's no hindrances. I mean, you got to bundle up if it's a November game. And if it's raining, you got to kind of figure that part out. But as far as space is concerned, you're kind of at the mercy of the home team. Now for Vicksburg, we just built a new home side press box. The visitors have their side in their press box. The home has their own. So we don't know what the visitors folks are doing. They have sight lines. They have a 3-level press box. They go up there, and they've got all the space they want. But, you know, we always kind of hold our breath when we're going to some of these schools because you just don't know what to expect. But for me, if I can go up on the roof, if the weather's good, I know there's no problems there. And most of the time, there are tables and chairs up there, you know, because I think other crews understand the same thing. So some of these elaborate press boxes is great, it's good, but if not, you got to do what you got to do. And get up on the roof, you see chairs and tables there, just got to go to work and get after it.
All right, as you pass the microphone to DK, because Caleb had called for him. So I came to Jackson State with women's basketball, and they rolled out the red carpet. So I don't know that you're telling the truth, or are you just saying that's other SWAC
That's the
schools?
other SWAC.
Right. The away game. Okay, so not Jackson State don't do that. Oh, I got you.
We all have stories similar to some of your stories, too. When I first was doing JUCO football for Northwest Community College, we went to East Mississippi. And we got to East Mississippi. It was like the opening game of the year. And I ordered a phone line. We're ready to go. You don't use phone lines anymore. We ordered a phone line, and I couldn't find it in the press box. First thing the guy said, you don't get to sit in here. I was like, where do I sit? He said, front row, right here. Pouring down rain, get to call it in the rain. And I noticed this phone truck over at the basketball gym at East Mississippi. And I thought, I wonder if that guy's putting my line in the gym. So I run down there. For those of you at East Mississippi, it's a long way from the football field to the basketball gym. So I run over there and I talk to the guy. And I said, are you putting in a phone line for Northwest Community College? Yeah, but I don't know where you want it. I said, not here. And so they had to go back over to the football stadium and put it in. So we dealt with that. I called a high school game from a scaffolding at North Panola one year. Those South Panola people here know that that's not a huge press box or hadn't been in the past. And so I was on a scaffolding and it was waving back and forth. And my color guy said, I'm done. I'm not helping you anymore. Climbed off, and so I did the game solo the rest of the way. I was going to hang in there. But you've got those issues pretty well. We're starting to get squeezed in our league, too. They mentioned the Auburn situation where they moved to the end zone. Some AD, thank God Carter's gone, some AD in his infinite wisdom thought that would be a good place to call a game from the end zone. It's too low. It's terrible. And I don't know why they did that outside of getting donors better location. That's happening in our league. We're getting squeezed. They're cutting press boxes a little bit. It's getting smaller and all that. But I did learn a few years ago, not many years ago, but you just can't complain. You just got to jump in there and do what you got to do, kind of like Charles said, and make it happen. But if you're on the high school JUCO level, you can also tell your comrade that's calling for the other team, hey, look, man, you get to our place, we got a great press box, but you're going to be outside. You know, and not to threaten them, but you can. I say that in teasing. You can work with the opposing schools sometimes too, and see if they can help. You know, go to bat for you to accommodate somebody. All right.
Okay, I think we're going to let these guys take a break. We're going to go with our second panel. If y'all have any more questions for them, you could do it during our breakout session. Thank you guys so very much. Rob J., you can stay up there if you want because your stories are funny. I'm just kidding. Come on. I'm going to come sit at your table. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. All right. Calling up Gary Darby, Jay Perry, Harry Harrison, John Darnell, Anthony Craven, and Jason Baker.